Shoppers are turning to cheaper own-label food products and discounters like Aldi and Lidl as they battle grocery price inflation, new data reveals. The cost of groceries is now 5.2% higher than it was a year ago, with inflation in the past month hitting its highest level in nearly a decade, figures from Kantar show. Customers are also making fewer trips to stores to save on petrol costs, the findings suggest. Popular shoppers are turning to cheaper own-label food products and discounters like Aldi and Lidl as they battle grocery price inflation. Prices are rising fastest in markets such as savory snacks, dog food, and cat food, with jumps not seen since April 2012, it added. Discounters Aldi and Lidl remained the fastest-growing supermarkets over the past few months, with both seeing sales up 3.6% over the 12 weeks compared with a year ago. This pushed Aldi to its biggest market share in the UK to date, with 8.6%. The chain was especially successful in attracting older customers this month, with a 16% rise in people aged over 55 buying from the grocer. Lidl's market share hit 6.4%, Kantar said. The hardest hit supermarkets were Asda and Morrisons, which saw sales drop 9.9% and 11.5% respectively, denting their market share. The data company also revealed that, with life returning to normal following the pandemic, shoppers are eating out more, especially among commuters who are returning to offices in larger numbers. Fraser McKevitt, head of retail and consumer insights at Kantar, said, "More and more we're going to see consumers and retailers take action to manage the growing cost of grocery baskets. Price shifts. The cost of groceries is now 5.2% higher than it was a year ago," Kantar said. Consumers are increasingly turning to own-label products, which are usually cheaper than branded alternatives. Own-label sales are down in line with the wider market, but the proportion of spending on them versus brands has grown to 50.6%, up from 49.9% this time last year. Meanwhile, the grocers are also adapting their pricing strategies in response to the rising cost of goods. One trend we're already tracking is the move away from selling products at round pound prices. The percentage of packs sold at either £1, £2, or £3 has dropped significantly from 18.2% last year to 15.9% this March. Despite prices being higher in stores, total sales fell 6.3% in the 3 months to the 20th of March compared with a year ago. On a 2-year basis they were up just 0.7%, although this also included the period when shoppers stripped shelves bare as the pandemic first hit. Mr. McKevitt said, "It's no surprise that sales are down over the latest period as consumers are now more confident eating out of the home again. As well as enjoying meals out with friends and families, people will have also been grabbing food and drink on the go from supermarkets while traveling or at work." Poll: have you been buying more supermarket own-brand goods as prices rise? Yes, no. Have you been buying more supermarket own-brand goods as prices rise? Yes, 60 votes. Number 19 votes. Now share your opinion. Those sales aren't included in these take-home figures, but they will be adding to the grocer's overall performance. What we're really starting to see is the switch from the pandemic being the dominant factor driving our shopping behavior towards the growing impact of inflation, as the cost of living becomes the bigger issue on consumers' minds. The shift saw households make 15.4 visits to the supermarket on average last month, compared with 15.6 trips in March 2021. Mr. McKevitt added, "Higher fuel prices could be playing a role here too, as people try to save petrol by visiting the supermarkets less often, something for us to keep a close eye on over the coming weeks." Some shifts in shopping habits since the start of the pandemic have become permanent, Kantar said, particularly in online shopping. Online sales made up 12.6% of total sales in March, compared with just 8% 3 years ago, and researchers found that shoppers over 65 were the biggest adopters, with 9% using it 3 years ago against 18% today. Myron Jobson, senior personal finance analyst at Interactive Investor, said, "Food manufacturers are raising prices across the board to offset higher costs for commodities, labor, transportation, and other expenses during the pandemic. These costs have escalated in recent history and retailers have passed more of these increases down to shoppers." It is interesting that more of us are turning to own label products to reduce the grocery bill, but the cost benefits of switching to lower-priced store brand equivalents wane when prices are rising across the board. Rising prices makes it difficult to cut down on costs and has a disproportionately acute impact on low-income households.